Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into, well, the final hours of a life. We're looking at 60 years of achievement and one really defining moment of heartbreak, all packed into Catherine Ann Porter's amazing short story, The Jilting of Granny Weatherall.
It really is a stunning piece of writing, and our source material today, it's pulled right from the story itself, so we get this incredibly unfiltered look right into the mind of a woman as she's dying. It's pure stream of consciousness, where the present is just constantly battling these powerful, long-suppressed memories.
And Porter herself, it's worth just, zooming out for a second. Her work was so shaped by the chaos, the disillusionment of the 20th century. You're talking World War I, the Great Depression, Nazism. She saw society fracturing.
Absolutely. And while she could tackle these huge political subjects like she did in Ship of Fools, Granny Weatherall brings that focus right down. It's not about nations breaking down. It's about the dissolving families, the fragile connections between people on the most personal level. This story really shows how that larger disillusionment can play out inside one single person.
Yeah. So by the end of this deep dive, we really want you to get how this intimate little story captures such huge pain, the pain of a whole lifetime spent trying to, well, outrun a broken promise, and why it hits so hard right at the very end. So let's start right there, in the bedroom. Granny Weatherall, she's nearly 80, she's stuck in bed, and she is not happy about it. She's sharp, she's witty, and she's really fighting against being treated like an invalid.
Oh, completely. That feistiness is her identity. She's holding on to psychological control just through sheer force of will. I mean, look how she talks to Dr. Harry. She calls him a brat in knee breeches, tells him to go doctor somebody who's actually sick. She totally dismisses his authority by pointing out her history. He wasn't even born 40 years ago when she survived milk leg and double pneumonia.
He's all about proving she doesn't need anyone, right? And her poor daughter, Cornelia, she seems to bear the brunt of it. Granny finds Cornelia's kindness, all that whispering around the door, just deeply irritating.
Yeah, she sees that kindness as a form of control, doesn't she? She feels like Cornelia treats her like she's deaf, dumb, and blind. Like she's trapped in a thin glass cage. It's like an imprisonment of how she's perceived. The second she feels treated as less than competent, the walls go straight up. She even jokes about wanting to spank her.
And this need for order, it's so key, because even now, on her deathbed, she's actually planning for tomorrow, dusting the clock with the lion on top. But the really telling thing is that plan to go up to the attic.
Yes. That's the ultimate act of sort of curating her own past, isn't it? She wants to go through that box, George's letters, John's letters, her letters back to them. And why? So the children won't find out how silly she had been once. It just shows the depth of that shame, that lifelong effort to control the narrative.
It's some serious denial, yeah. And she's faced death before, or thought she had. The story tells us she thought she was finished at 60. Made her will, took farewell trips, but then she got over a fever and got over the idea of dying for a long time.
Right, and that's the crucial difference. That time, she was in control. She set the terms. But now death feels clammy and unfamiliar. She keeps insisting, I can't go, because she's taken by surprise. She's fighting that final lack of control, even demanding a noggin of hot toddy, like her father, who lived to 102, as if the ritual itself might somehow let her cheat death again.
Okay, so we see her fighting for control now. But where did that incredible will actually come from? Let's look at her memories, because the life she built was immense. It wasn't just a life, it was like a fortress built on competence.
She was truly a force of nature. She remembers the physical work. I mean, can you imagine fencing in 100 acres, digging post holes with just a Negro boy to help? And that line is incredible. Digging post holes changed a woman.
That really suggests the hardship shaped her, hardened her against future pain. And that competence wasn't just on the farm, was it? She was central to her community.
Absolutely. Riding out in winter to deliver babies, sitting up all night with sick kids, sick animals, hardly ever losing one. This wasn't just being a good mother. She was like the local healer, the rock for everyone, indispensable.
But stepping back, is all that competence just pride, or is it also kind of a shield? She pictures telling her dead husband, John, pointing to the kids, well, I didn't do so badly, did I? It almost sounds like she needs validation for her whole life's project.
I think that's exactly the mechanism, isn't it? She didn't just build a life. She built this massive, visible structure of achievement. And it feels like it was designed, maybe unconsciously, to prove that the first jilting didn't matter. Even now, her grown kids, Lydia and Jimmy, they still come to her for business advice. That constantly reinforces her value, that she wasn't too old yet. She needed that feeling of being useful.
And yet, alongside that toughness, there's this really beautiful, almost fragile memory. Lighting the old kerosene lamps, the kids huddling close until the light came on, and then they didn't have to be scared and hang on to Mother anymore. Order brings safety.
Hmm. And her thoughts on waste, too. You waste life when you waste good food.
That focus on not wasting anything, food, time, effort, it feels directly connected to that central loss, that central waste. She seems terrified that all her effort might, in the end, have been poured into, well, into a void.
And that void is exactly what bursts through next, isn't it? The walls just crumble. The memory is described as being physically squeezed out of her heart. It forces her back to that green day with no threats in it. Yeah, the 60-year-old betrayal. And Porter makes it feel like it just happened. Putting on the white veil, setting out the white cake for a groom who just doesn't come. And she explicitly calls that moment, when the whole bottom dropped out of the world, she calls it hell.
60 years praying not to remember George, the man who left her. But then, in her final confusion, she completely flips. She wants him found. She wants someone to tell him, I forgot him.
Right. But hang on, if she'd really forgotten him, would she need to send a message from her deathbed?
It doesn't quite sound like forgetting, does it? It sounds more like one last desperate attempt to claim victory over that ghost, to assert dominance.
A performance for an audience of one who isn't even there. Still, she did have John. He was the one who stepped in, married her, caught her when she almost fell after George left. The story says he was strong, cursed like a sailor's parrot, said, I'll kill him for you. He was her anchor. He definitely was. A real love, a solid foundation. But here comes maybe the most painful realization in the whole story. The moment the fortress truly fails, despite the good house, the good husband, the fine children, she realizes there was still something not given back.
Something missing, like a promise maybe, or a sign.
Exactly. And that absence, that void, it didn't get smaller over time. It grew into a monstrous, frightening shape with cutting edges. It caused unbelievable agony. All the work, the babies, the community service, it was all, in a way, trying to fill that specific hole left by George. And in her last moments, she understands it didn't work.
That's just devastating. And as she gets closer to the end, the line between past and present completely dissolves. All her kids are there. Lydia, Jimmy, Cornelia. Father Conley arrives for the last rites. But Granny's mind is darting around, worrying about aunts, asking for wine to be sent to Sister Borgia for her indigestion.
Even then, even with the priest right there, she's still trying to manage the material world, trying to impose order on the chaos. And then we get that incredibly strange, complex vision of Hapsy.
Right, Hapsy. One of her children, though it's a bit unclear if Hapsy's alive or dead. And she sees her holding a baby.
And this is where the self just seems to completely fracture. She sees Hapsy, and suddenly she is Hapsy. The baby is Hapsy, herself, him. Everyone melts together. All the boundaries dissolve. It feels like a final, desperate grab for Wujing, for continuity, for life itself before death claims her. But then Hapsy just fades into flimsy as gray gauze and says, I thought you'd never come. Another connection broken, another arrival too late.
The confusion just spirals after that. She's arguing with Cornelia about what time it is. That was this morning, Mother. It's night now. She sees Dr. Harry surrounded by a rosy nimbus, like he's suddenly a saint. Everything's upside down.
And she remembers that moment years ago, stopping John from going after George, telling him to leave something to God. That memory is the setup, isn't it, for the final, awful, symbolic betrayal. She put her trust in God to balance the scales eventually.
So she looks for Hapsy again, can't find her, realizes death is the final surprise attack. The light from Cornelia's lamp shrinks down to a tiny point in the center of her brain. It flickers, and she asks God for a sign.
And this is it. The climax where past and present collide perfectly. The final lines are just crushing. For the second time, there was no sign. Again, no bridegroom and the priest in the house. Her whole life was defined by George not showing up, and now at the very end, God doesn't show up either.
Wow. So that first jilting, the broken promise at the altar, it's perfectly mirrored on her deathbed, that original grief, the one she fought against for 60 years. It just washes away everything else, the love, the achievements, and she blows out the light.
It's the ultimate expression of Porter's theme, that modern disillusionment. The life Granny built, the competence, the family, the community work, it was objectively good. Solid, but it was built on a faulty foundation because it never truly healed that first wound. It just papered over the void.
So she dies not just losing her life, but losing the 60-year battle to prove the trauma didn't define her. A tragedy of, well, misplaced focus, maybe.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to maybe chew on. The story mentions that the wedding cake, the day she was jilted, it wasn't just left uneaten, it was thrown out and wasted.
Uh,
So if Granny's whole life was overshadowed by waiting for a sign that never came, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of our own energy do we spend trying to fix or forget some defining loss from the past instead of truly investing in the life we actually have right now? That's something to think about.